Hi, buddy. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Marvel Reread Club.
Okay, so, Matt, with the subject matter that we're going to be dealing with in today's episode, which is going to be the third part of May 1968, I was wondering, we haven't talked about this before, have you seen Eyes of Wakanda?
No, I haven't. I didn't even know it had come out.
Oh yeah, it came out a while ago. Are you familiar with what it is? Have you heard of it before?
I just know it's some animated series set in Wakanda. That's all. That's my only awareness of it.
Yeah, it's only a 4-episode series, but yeah, it goes back to like ancient Bronze Age Wakanda.
Okay.
Yes, it has some history of them protecting their vibranium artifacts from getting out into the outside world. And it's quite well done. I generally am pretty happy with it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm currently watching, is it called Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man? I'm watching the Spider-Man cartoon they did, which I'm enjoying quite a bit.
Yeah, I watched that a little while ago. So you're liking that one?
Yeah.
Where are you in it?
I'm on episode 3 or 4. Norman Osborn has created a bunch of super suits for Spider-Man.
At that point in the series, I think I was still a little bit skeptical of it, but as it goes on, I like it more and more.
Okay. I'm surprised they haven't tried pushing the Wakanda series on me yet. I will take a look for that and find it.
Yeah, please do. And I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about it when you do.
Yes.
Anything else that you think we need to discuss before we jump on into things here?
Nope. Things are going well here. I assume things are going well there.
I mean, all things considered these days.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, that's great. I guess we should go ahead and finish up this month. The first time we've ever spent 3 episodes on 1 month. And I looked ahead and there's just as many books next month. So We're not going to be going down anytime soon. But I think eventually the number of books goes down a little bit. But I looked ahead at various things and saw, there's all sorts of interesting things coming up. But we'll talk about it more as we go.
Yes.
I did look ahead at, you had asked me how long John Buscema stayed on Submariner. So I went ahead and looked ahead at that. So John Buscema stays on 8 issues on Submariner. And then Maurice Severin has a long, interesting run on the book. And then Sal Buscema has a long run on the book. So he's coming up. So I'm looking forward to the Submariner solo series.
All right. Well, the writing on Submariner as a solo book has never really done much for me, but I'll at least be able to enjoy the art.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So I guess we haven't discussed who is going to do which books here. Do you want to take Strange Tales or do you want me to do that one?
I can do it.
Okay, sure.
Let's go ahead and jump in and do Strange Tales featuring Doctor Strange and Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Exile. So you may notice that all of other Marvel's hot bunked books, as you've sometimes called them, all of Marvel's other 2-in-1 books have split up by now, and there's only one left standing, and that is Strange Tales. Well, it only lasts 1 month longer than everything else does.
Sorry, you may have heard me opening a can of fizzy water.
I did.
May be what, okay, sorry about
opening
that.
A can of Whoop-Ass.
Yes.
All right. Steve has opened a can of Whoop-Ass. All right. So then Strange Tales only lasts 1 month longer than everything else. This is the final issue of Strange Tales. Next issue, Doctor Strange will continue this numbering with 169, and Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. will get their own number 1. And then Strange Tales then is eventually brought back as a book that has the legendary Jim Starlin Warlock run in it, and it'll be brought back in all sorts of strange ways in the future. But for now, this is it for Strange Tales. So let's go ahead and look at Marvel's only 2-in-1 book this month and Marvel's last 2-in-1 book for some time. Eventually, in a year or so, they'll come back and they'll have, of all people, Doctor Doom and Kazar sharing a book. But that's a little bit off in the future. Strange Tales featuring Doctor Strange and Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 168, Exile. We have a great Dali-esque cover by Dan Atkins. Doctor Strange against a surreal landscape looking at the Scientist Supreme and Victoria Bentley. We jump into the issue. Eyes have not seen nor ears heard the wonders wrought herein by the indomitable imaginations of Stanley editor Denny O'Neil, scripter Dan Atkins, artist Sam Rosen, letterer. So, guess what we get in this issue, Steve?
Well, I mean, I've read it, so I know, but I don't know what you're getting at.
We get to the end of the storyline.
We get to the bathroom break.
We finally get to the bathroom break. It has been 22 issues that this storyline has gone on. First, he fought Kalu'u, then that went directly into fighting Umar, and then Zom, and then the Living Tribunal, and then Mordo, and then Yandroth, and they all flowed directly into each other. And finally, it all comes to an end. This issue, we've had on art, we've had Bill Everett, Marie Severin, Dan Adkins. On writing, we've had Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, Jim Lawrence, Denny O'Neil, and more. I think we haven't even covered it, all in this one storyline.
It's funny, with the idea of this long-ass storyline that has had multiple writers and multiple artists, it almost makes me think of, remember when we were kids, DC had a series called, I think it was DC Challenge?
Yes,
where,
it is like that.
Where essentially it'd just be like, oh yeah, so one writer-artist team would come up with some kind of plot and then leave it with a cliffhanger, and then somebody else had to come in and pick up the cliffhanger and go with that. But this seems to have worked out better than the DC Challenge series.
That's right. When I was reading comics to my son, I was like, well, I'm mostly just reading Marvel Comics because I'm really a Marvel Comics guy, but I had the honest inkling. I'm like, I think my son might enjoy DC Challenge because he would enjoy the challenge aspect of it, you know, ending every issue on a cliffhanger and then forcing another writer to come up with a resolution to that cliffhanger. I think he might enjoy that, but I never did. I didn't read it to him. And indeed, I've never finished reading it myself. But I really enjoyed the book when I was a kid, but I never finished reading it because I never collected all the issues. But of course, these days, that's not an issue. Issues are not an issue anymore. So anyway, we jump into this book. Doctor Strange is still fighting Yandroth, the Scientist Supreme, for the life of Victoria Bentley. Dan Atkins does not seem to be swiping, and he is doing an amazing job with this other dimensional goodness, this Ditko-y, Severin-y other dimensional goodness.
Well, I gotta say, the big shot of Victoria Bentley on page 3 looks like a swipe of some sort to me.
Yeah, it could be.
That does not look like an Atkins pose. But yeah, one way or the other, probably not as swipey as some, but there are some things that look like swipes.
Yes. So then Yandroth, last issue, summoned up a Godzilla-like thing to seemingly fight Doctor Strange and some Asgardian Valkyrie type things. But Yandroth seems to have quickly lost control of what he has summoned, because then he ends up having to fight the Godzilla type thing. Doctor Strange wraps him up in his cape. He eventually gets free. He sort of falls off one of the Ditko-esque platforms and seemingly falls forever. Doctor Strange and Victoria Bentley have to be chased around by the Valkyries for a while, but eventually they get away. They meet back up with the Ancient One, and they say, yes, you have nothing more to fear. The Vishanti willing, you will never know fear again. And it says, slowly they rematerialize in the chamber of the Ancient One. And Doctor Strange thinks her lovely face becomes empty. Already the memory of this thing she has suffered is fading. It is best so. And then Ancient One says the most mildly put words you could ever possibly say. Come, faithful disciple, come and take the rest you have well earned. Indeed. Next
first,
issue.
The restroom.
Yes, first the restroom. Next issue, Doctor Strange in his own mag at last. So you'll note that the first 4 books that they spun off into their own solo series, they were in the middle of storylines for all of them. So for Submariner, Incredible Hulk, Captain America, and in Iron Man, they all split off into their own books right in the middle of storylines, and then felt like they had to sort of shoehorn in origins, even though they were in the middle of storylines. Well, with both Doctor Strange and Nick Fury, we'll see, they wrap up the storylines before they spin them off into their own books. I think they had learned their lesson on the other 4 books. So, Steve, what did you think of this Doctor Strange story?
I thought it stuck the landing relatively well for the end of this long storyline. I like the Dan Adkins visuals in here. I also very much like Yandroth is trying to keep Victoria Bentley captured, but then also has to deal with these dangers that he imported into this world. And Doctor Strange, meanwhile, is trying to protect Victoria Bentley and get Yandroth, and that it sort of creates a little bit more complexity in terms of what's going on. And indeed, Doctor Strange was trying to defeat Yandroth without killing him or sending him on a never-ending plummet through the dream world. But in the end, he couldn't maintain his concentration to do all of these things at once, and had to eventually make the decision that it's like, nope, if I'm going to lose my concentration on something, it's going to have to let Yandroth fall. But, you know, it upped the stakes a little bit in the panel-to-panel story, which I liked.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's very well done. It's always good when he gets to use his cloak in ways that are similar to the MCU, where he's using his cloak as almost a friend who is going around doing sidekick. Yeah, it did seem odd to have a story set. They call this the dimension of dreams, and it's sort of odd that they're in the dimension of dreams this whole time and they never run into Nightmare. Nightmare will show up in another couple of issues, but he is oddly not in this issue. But we will get to see Dan Enkin's Nightmare before too long.
Great. So let's move on to one of the weirdest stories that Marvel has done.
Indeed, a weird story. So, as you know, if there's one thing Jim Steranko likes, he likes long, unwieldy, rambling, shaky dog stories. When he started off, he took over the, what was it called? Infinity Horn, something like that. He took over the Hydra Horn storyline and ran with it for, I think, over a year. And then he went directly from that into the Claw storyline, which went for almost a year, I think. And he likes long rambling storylines. Well, it seems like Stanley has finally gotten his act together here and has figured out that, Jim, when we launch Nick Fury into his own book next month, then we want to start him off with a new story in that issue. So you have to do a one-issue story, which Steranko does not love to do. So how does Steranko get his story down to one issue? Well, he wraps it up in the lamest way you can possibly wrap up a story, which is he gets the story going and it's off to a fine funnel, and then he announces, it was all a dream. And that is the way he gets out of it. But I'm not going to complain because I love this story. This is a story called Today Earth Died, as recorded that last day by these men, Lee, Steranko, Sinnott, Rosen. And we've got a great splash of Nick Fury recording into a very phallic-looking microphone.
I find it interesting that, Lee always gives himself first-line credit, but it always says editor if he's not writing it. This seems to imply that Lee was actually writing the story here, which I doubt he was.
Yeah, he's just editor, presumably.
And can we talk about that lamp that's behind Fury's head?
What is that thing?
It's very alien looking. It is weird. It's got all sorts of little itty bitty, like little spotlight looking things that are sticking out of it in the same angle, but from different places. Has like lots of different kind of tendrils or stalks that are going up into a big thing. It looks sort of almost like a little triangular video panel. It is as weird as this story is.
Yes. So then we cut to page 2. We see he's continuing to record into his little microphone, talking about how they're going to offer Jimmy Woo a job, which is good, even though this whole story turns out to be a dream, but presumably that part doesn't. He gets a call from Val, who is actually a photograph of a woman for Val, and it is really gorgeous. We're sort of looking up at her face, at this woman's face, and it looks like something right out of a movie like Blow Up or something. We get a Carmine Infantino-esque shot of Nick Fury getting into his car with him frozen in motion, sort of man descending a staircase / if I were artsier, I would say it's like, the famous painting Man Descending a Staircase, but I'm not. So I say it's like Carmine Infantino doing The Flash. So then
that car is also a photo that he's jumping into.
Yes, you're right. So then meanwhile, aliens land and photograph of New York underneath the aliens landing. And Steranko just absolutely loves and absolutely goes crazy psychedelic with the patterns that are created in the air when the alien is landing. The alien lands. He looks out like the future Hulk villain / hero Glorian. He looks exactly like him, but this is an earlier version. It's just a golden blonde guy in a toga. And he shows up. There are photographs of Times Square behind him. So this is a very photograph heavy issue. We cut back to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, where we get one of the most cheesecakey shots in all of Marvel history, where we've got Val taking up almost the entire page. Well, the rest of the page is broken up into long panels. Val is astride all of these panels, and it is quite the butt shot. We are looking at her from the back, and she is looking over her shoulder fetchingly at us, and she's wearing high-heeled boots.
It's one of those butt and boob shots where you can they make sure to get both in there.
But not as bad as they sometimes do it. Not a full Brokeback pose. No. So it's a gorgeous page. Meanwhile, we see it cut to Nick Fury in Times Square interacting with the alien. all sorts of cool tech, but then he looks through his little viewer thing. Oh, and I guess Dum Dum and Val are there too now. I guess it's Val at this point looking through her little viewer thing because that's a long fingernail. And got your image scanner with you, use it, and sees that the alien is actually a giant centipede, which can't be good. Then we cut to a little cutaway, which is seemingly not going to be revealed to be a dream sequence, and that is Jimmy Woo considering the job offer from S.H.I.E.L.D., which is very well done, very beautifully illustrated. Reminds me of later, the one Marvel series that will be most the inheritor of James Franco's work on S.H.I.E.L.D., and that will be Paul Gulacy's work on Master of Kung Fu. And it reminds me of work Gulacy will do in that series.
I do find it interesting that Jimmy Woo is portrayed as wearing Chinese clothing in his private home. And has Chinese statuary in there as well while he sits around smoking his cigarette, considering the offer that he's just been made.
Yeah.
I also noticed that, once again, I will give Jim Franco a lot of credit for doing what looks like a relatively decent version of a Chinese face, Chinese-American face, without caricature, which I commend him for that.
Yes. So then, meanwhile, we cut back to the other storyline, and the alien, it's a little unclear in the art, but the alien fries Dum Dum and Val and turns them into piles of ash. That's not good. Fury goes ahead and hits him with a gadget that reveals him to indeed be the centipede type thing that we saw he was. Then suddenly, just to get the story moving a little quicker, the alien destroys the Earth. And we have a big photo collage of the Earth being destroyed on page 10, which is quite gorgeous. And then just when you think the story can't get any crazier, then Nick Fury wakes up and the whole thing turns out to just be a dream. But then what does he hear that causes him to freak out while he's lighting his cigar at the end? Says, oh yeah, some Dum Dum says, yeah, well, have it your own way. Oh yeah, before it slips my mind, Val told me to tell me some kind of UFO or something's been spotted. Probably nothing, though. I told him you'd be down in the gym. Sure you won't change your mind, huh? What do you say, huh? Come on. But Nick Fury is afraid that his dream is coming true, and he is trying to light his cigar, and he looks freaked out. He looks one of the most freaked out faces I've ever seen in Marvel Comics. And that is the end of the issue. So very, very silly to just have an issue in which a bunch of horrible big things happen and then it just turns out to all be a dream. Even weirder when there is a subplot going on, which will not turn out to be a dream. But I just think this is just a great issue. It's just so much photo collage, so much fun. Really fun to see Steranko handle an alien invasion, which is something that a lot of other Marvel artists have gotten to handle in very different ways. What did you think of this issue?
It was utterly bizarre. But visually, it was just stunning. When the alien ship is descending and you were talking about the psychedelic pattern that the ship was making in the air, it reminds me of Italian marbled paper. Are you familiar with that?
Like Florentine style paper?
I don't know. I've just heard it referred to as Italian, but that thing where you do the patterns of oily ink on the surface of water and then you place paper down onto it and it sucks up the ink that you've made patterns in on the surface. Very much looks like that to me. The other detail that you omitted is that Fury gets the little headband off of the alien that apparently is what made it look human. And he's like, well, if it makes him look like a human, maybe it'll turn me into an alien. And he puts it on himself and turns into another freaky deaky alien that is fighting the other one. So page 9, panel 1. I always am a fan of when comics artists can make aliens that really look alien.
Yeah.
and here he's able to have these two completely different looking, completely alien looking aliens fighting each other, which I have a big respect for.
Yes. Yeah, it's a gorgeous page, as with every single page in this issue.
Indeed. So that's all I have to say about it. And so I guess we should move on to Captain America. When Wakes the Sleeper? Now, I saw this and I'm like, wait, didn't we already do the sleeper?
Yes.
And we did. But then they're just like, oh, yeah, there were 3 sleepers, but guess what? There was a 4th. So that's what we're doing this time. A little bit cheap, but, you know, we still get a lot of good action in here. So Captain America, Living Legend of World War II, When Wakes the Sleeper, proudly produced by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, inking Sid Shore's, lettering Artie Simak. Still not a big fan of Sid Shore's inking, but I'm not disliking it quite as much as I have the last 2 issues.
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's just very heavy spotting of blacks, very heavy shadows, I think it just makes for a very dynamic page.
All right. Well, as I said, we've got different opinions on that, but that's fine. So Captain America we start in medias res with Captain America fighting a bunch of goons. And it turns out that the leader of these goons is a notorious Nazi, Werner von Krim, escaped Nazi war criminal, better known as the Butcher of Lichtengarten. And so he's trying to defeat this guy, but then in come the cops. Well, not just the cops and Nick Fury, which is an odd combination. But Nick Fury is giving Von Krim the benefit of the doubt, and who's saying that he's simply a merchant who was misunderstood, and this is all a big misunderstanding. And Captain America is like, what is going on with Nick just going ahead and taking this guy's word for everything? But then Nick, as soon as the guy leaves, is just like, yeah, don't worry, I placed a tracer on him. We're looking for bigger fish than him.
And when Nick Fury says goodbye to Von Krim says, Auf Wiedersehen, Colonel, and clicks his heels together while shaking Nick Fury's hands.
Yes, and giving his business card. So,
that's what he's doing. I see.
Yes. So anyway, we find out that the one that Von Krim is going to and who they're trying to track down is none other than the Red Skull, who was dead last time we saw him. But
isn't he always?
Yes. On page 5, where you get a big splash of some of his henchmen trying to free the fourth sleeper from its chamber, I really like the description on that little arrow pointing down at the skull, saying, slowly, commandingly, the dramatic figure turns, entering the mysterious chamber which contains his greatest prize. And then, in a voice like frosted gravel, the Red Skull speaks. I just love that phrasing, a voice like frosted gravel.
Yeah, it's great.
It's extremely evocative.
So the Red Skull, his outfit is always constantly changing. The Red Skull itself, so iconic, so wonderful, but what he wears underneath it is changing from time to time, often involves some sort of green jumpsuit. This time it's a green jumpsuit with brown shoes, white gloves, and a huge white scarf wrapped around his neck. I just never like it. I never like him in anything except for Nazi regalia, and him in these endless varieties of green jumpsuits. I just don't like them. But anyway, here we go.
And Stan does seem to be like, hey, we've done this story before, right? So also on page 5, there's a long thing saying like, hey, yeah, we did a whole story about sleepers. And don't worry. We'll get around to explaining why we're seeming to do this thing again with a villain who seems to be dead and some other plot that has already been done before. So we get the story of how the Skull escaped the exploding submarine last time, which it's very simple, just involves an escape hatch, basically.
Believable enough.
Yes. Meanwhile, he's waiting for Von Krim, who has some kind of key that will allow the sleeper to wake up. Captain America is in some sort of S.H.I.E.L.D.-owned magnetic flight something or other, where he's following Von Krim's plane, which then finds the island that the Skull is on and descends into the Earth. Captain America's vehicle's blown out of the sky, but he's got some sort of full-body airbag getup, which is kind of cool on page 9.
Kind of cool and kind of very silly. So
well, yeah.
He blows up like a balloon, turns into a massive floating airbag with arms and legs, and just pops down into the jungle. And it's cool looking and silly looking.
Yes. So Red Skull goons descend upon him. He has a big fight with them. Von Krim, meanwhile, gets to the Red Skull and is going to hand over the key, although he's like, but wait a minute, it's too soon. Don't you remember we had an agreed upon date? And the Red Skull is like, that was only in the event of my death, you unthinking martinet. Can you not see I still live? Give me the key. Sorry, I didn't make my voice like frosted gravel there. I should have done that better. So there's apparently some sort of crystal key that is used to control this thing. So right as he's retrieving the crystal key from Von Krim, Captain America is being brought in by the goons, and the sleeper awakens, but apparently the crystal key is not doing enough to control the sleeper. The sleeper also has powers that involve changing density. These are actually very similar to the powers we're going to be seeing from the Vision in a few issues in Avengers. He can essentially decrease his density so that things can pass right through him, or increase his density in order to do other stuff. And it looks like he is completely out of control and is vaporizing some of Red Skull's goons. Red Skull looks pretty panicked, and he's like, I'm getting out of here. Captain America follows him, and it turns out that this sleeper can turn himself into a living volcano. Okay, sure, we'll go with that description. So then it literally blows up the whole island that they're on, and we have a really neat panel on page 16 of the ocean filling back into the hole that's been left in the sea where the island had been. So Captain America and the Skull are in some sort of little caisson at the bottom of the ocean, and so they're safe for the moment, but then they are still trapped in this little place. They get into a fight. Captain America gets the key from the Red Skull, but then their little compartment ends up breaking and the water comes rushing in. Meanwhile, the sleeper is going and causing more havoc all up and down the East Coast. There's a silly little bit where there are a bunch of people sitting around watching a test site for some new buildings that are built with a new material that is absolutely indestructible. Those buildings will stand forever. And then they immediately crumble. At the end of the story, the sleeper is still wreaking havoc on the eastern half of the U.S. Agent 13 comes in to Colonel Fury and is like, no, you told me you would let me, you would tell me before you sent him out on any dangerous missions. And he's like, yeah, well, I had to do it. And at this point, they both think that Captain America is dead, which he really should be if he was at the bottom of the ocean and the ocean came in on him. But he's able to float to the top despite his chainmail armor and his shield, and float to the surface, and he has the key, but then what's he going to do with it? What can he do at this point? So next, the sleeper strikes.
Yes, the Skull, he's gone, and I'm left with the key. What good can it do me now? Yes. So I just thought this was a delightful issue. I enjoyed the Sleeper storyline. It was very strange back in the day. A couple years ago, they had the Sleeper storyline where the Red Skull had left behind this whole plan where these Sleepers, this big 3-part robot of the Sleepers would arise in case he himself had died and couldn't come back. And they did the whole Sleeper storyline without the Red Skull. The Red Skull was dead throughout the Sleeper storyline. And then they defeated the Sleepers. And then in the next issue, they're like, oh, why don't we just have the Red Skull come back to life? That'd be a good story driver. And I'm like, why did you do these stories in this order? Wouldn't it have made more sense otherwise? But now, for the first time, we've got the Red Skull actually interacting with one of his own Sleepers and reviving it himself. And it is very interesting that it is so similar to the Vision. Obviously, Stanley sort of, I was going to say Stanley fell in love with the idea here of a robot that can affect its density, but it's Roy Thomas who actually does it. So Stanley does it here and then passes it on to Roy Thomas, who takes the ball and runs with it, to put it mildly, and creates one of Marvel's great characters. I say at the end of my notes, great issue if you don't mind Shore's inking, prime Kirby Lee plotting, and Kirby pencils. Good to have Red Skull and Sleepers back.
Yeah. Well, and as I said, I really disliked Shore's inking in the first issue that we saw it in. Didn't like it much better in the second, but something, I don't know whether it's growing on me or whether there's something about it that's a little different, that has a different character to it this time. But I'm kind of warming to it a little bit here at this point. So, yeah, that is the story.
Yep. Great issue. Okay. Should I go ahead and do Captain Marvel #1?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right.
There's not much to it.
Not much to it. There is not. As indeed there never will be in this book until Jim Starlin takes it over many years later. We have Marvel's spaceborne superhero, Captain Marvel, big premiere issue, out of the Holocaust, a hero. They sure do love that word Holocaust here at Marvel Comics. It's a word that makes us uncomfortable these days, and we don't just throw around willy-nilly like they do here, but okay. And of course, because it is a #1 issue, we have Captain Marvel with massively spread out legs on the cover. Spread out about 100 degrees here, not quite the 180 of some other covers.
He's doing a full starfish.
Yeah, he looks like a starfish, and he is there against a sort of cosmic background with a bunch of planets floating behind him. So then we go ahead and jump into the issue. Marvel's spaceborne superhero Captain Marvel out of the Holocaust of Heroes. Stanley meritoriously, is that how you pronounce that? Meritoriously.
Yeah,
Stanley meritoriously mulls over a Roy Thomas Gene Colan classic of cataphonic conflagration, incendiary inking by Vince Colletta, luminary lettering by Artie Simek, fire extinguishers by Honest Irv. We don't give Stanley enough credit for these credit boxes. He just... the amount of alliteration he manages to pack into each of these things, and they're always different. He does like 10 of these a month, and he's been doing these credit boxes for, 3 or 4 years now at this point, and they never seem to, I think this is the first time he's ever said classic of cataphonic conflagration.
Well, okay, so two things. One, we don't know that this isn't Roy Thomas right now.
Yeah.
And second, I'm pretty sure we've used cataphonic at least once in one of these things. But that's but your point still stands very much. While I have you interrupted here, I will say that Vince Colletta inking Gene Colan has just been a complete train wreck in the past. Colletta manages to do little damage in this particular issue, in my opinion.
Yes, I say in my notes, Colletta over Colan used to be Marvel's worst combo back when they were doing Submariner, but it's better than it used to be. So I had the same conclusion. Still not great. Don't get me wrong. Still a terrible choice for inking Gene Colan, but not as bad as those absolutely atrocious Submariner issues were. So then we've got, we're picking up in the middle of last issue. Once again, we've got somebody breaking off into their own book. And once again, we're right in the middle of a storyline where we've got Captain Marvel fighting the Sentry. They are just shooting whammies at each other for many, many, many pages. And let's see, let me just keep going through this issue. And so then we cut up to Jan-Rog's ship, where Jan-Rog now has Una all tied up for trying to help Captain Marvel. But she manages to sort of wriggle free, and it's like, oh, good, she's being an active heroine who's going to help Captain Marvel some more. No, she's just trying to listen in to the play-by-play of the battle, and then it gets shut down, and the robot refuses to help her anymore. And so she's like, oh, well. So not much good that Una is doing anybody here. But we cut back to the battle as they just continue to zonk each other for another, let's say 10 pages. Eventually, a bunch of soldiers break in. The Sentry is shooting them. We cut to Captain Marvel's landlord, who is getting more and more suspicious of him, and heads off to go tell the army base about suspicious things he's found. We cut back to, as Captain Marvel is fighting the Sentry, Carol Danvers frees herself from a pile of rubble and comes out. She always looks fetching in her pearls and her pantsuit. I guess not pantsuit, but what would you call that? Shirt.
I have no idea.
Pants combo.
It's like blouse and pants or something. Well, I don't know. Yeah, top. I don't know. But I will say that she pulls herself out from underneath a pile of debris. She was buried under all this debris, as she says. And she comes out and her hair and her makeup are perfect. Nothing is messed up on her clothes. She just looks like she came right from the salon.
Yes. She is, this is how she gets to be a great superhero herself. This is how she eventually gets to steal the name Captain Marvel for herself. She knows what she's doing. She's very fancy. And so then.
Okay. Fancy.
She is. She's a fancy lady. So the fight continues for many more issues. Eventually, Captain Marvel puts together a device that will cause the Sentry to say, my circuits inside my chest plate, they begin to feel drawn, pulled together. And Captain Marvel says, yes, pulled together by the magnetic force, which I gave my final blast. So then it's sort of just a silly way to wrap everything up. And Jan-Rog, meanwhile, is checking in with Ronan the Accuser. First time we've seen him in this book, going like, hey, Ronan the Accuser, you want to intervene here and help me kill Captain Marvel? And Ronan's like, no, I don't. Though you know or not, we have monitored with displeasure your recent actions. For the sake of a personal vendetta, you have endangered a mission of potentially vast importance. Seek not to defend yourself. So then he's not going to help. And they finally wrap things up. Captain Marvel, they're like, our thanks, Captain Marvel. Can't you stay a while? There are so many questions. He says, no, already I've stayed too long. And he takes off and then is looking down at the base from the hills nearby. And says, next ish, the somewhat sinister Super Skrull. This is, the problem is that for just filling many, many pages of battle is great when you've got Jack Kirby. And it's just not as good with anybody else. And you just can't follow this battle between Captain Marvel and the Sentry Sinister. They just look like they're sort of walloping each other on every page or shooting beams at each other on every page. There's no sense at all when I read this comic of the advantage shifting. There's no sense at all of who's got the upper hand at any given time. It's just really a pretty weak issue of a giant robot and a superhero wailing on each other for 20 pages, and really shows off the deficiencies of Gene Colan as a comic book plotter / penciler. So I'm not a big fan of this issue, and certainly Coletta, not a great inker on Colan, although doing much better job than he's done in the past. What did you think of this issue?
Yeah, pretty boring, as you said. If I had bought this comic off the rack as a kid, the only thing that would make me consider buying the next issue is the caption, "Next ish, the somewhat sinister Super Skrull." You know, I'm like, oh, okay, well, the Super Skrull might be interesting, but the rest of this stuff just not doing much of anything for me. So let me just point out a few little things along the way. On page 6, panel 3, take a look at Captain Marvel on that panel and tell me your thoughts.
Boy, he is, sometimes Gene Colan will show people really twisting themselves around to extreme degrees, and in a way that makes them look sort of like Jack Davis from Mad Magazine. And this is worthy of Jack Davis, the degree to which Captain Marvel is doing a 720 degree twist with his body here.
Yeah, generally, I think that what people were learning from Jack Kirby at this point is that exaggerating the, what makes a figure dynamic to an absurd degree generally tends to work. Well, sometimes it gets a little too absurd. And this reminds me a little bit of the Daredevil panel where he's snapping his fingers and kicking his legs up on a ledge, 20 stories above the street. It looks a little bit like that to me. But that one got a little out of hand.
Yeah.
On the next page, this is one thing I notice about Coletta is that, oftentimes he will have the thin, scratchy pen lines for things, but then out of nowhere, there's one line that's way too thick. And so on page 7, panel 4, we see a close-up of Una's face, and her hair is those thin, sort of scratchy, wispy lines. And then the line that separates her hair from her face gets super thick as it reaches down on her chin. And I just find that that's something that is a signature of Coletta's, for better or worse.
Yes, mostly worse.
I really like the one thing I will give Coletta a lot of credit on is on page 12, panel 2. I love that shot of the landlord's face as we're seeing from behind the suitcase looking at his face. And Coletta did a really nice job bringing that face to life from whatever Colan gave him.
I agree.
There's a little mistake here on the previous panel 1 of that page. The footnote says, so it just says, to pick up on another thread of our tale, and footnote, which began to unravel so ominously in Marvel Superheroes number 14.
No, that was Marvel Superheroes number 13. Number 14 started Spider-Man.
Right. I think 12 and 13. And then now this is, exactly. Once again, that's really nitpicky. But to some degree, I like to nitpick.
Yes.
I had another couple of panels screenshotted, but I don't remember why I brought them up. And so that's just fine. We'll just move along.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our final book of the month, Avengers number 52, which is a really good issue that I am jealous that you get to cover. Although I should say it says the Avengers number 52. I'll go ahead and just steal it from you and begin covering it myself. It has on the cover the Grim Reaper, the man who killed the Avengers. And I got to say, Grim Reaper's costume eventually calms down. Don't worry, everybody. If you think there are way too many colors in the Grim Reaper's costume, you are correct. And he will soon turn down to just a very simple blue and gray. But on this cover, he's got purple. He's got purple tunic with a big darker purple cummerbund with a red skull on it, and then green sleeves and pants, and then a dark blue cape and cowl, and red cuffs, red boots, and of course, silver scythe. So it is quite the busy costume.
Yeah, could you describe the cuffs on both his boots and his gloves?
They are they're bunchy. I don't know. I don't know what word I would use to describe them. They are they're quite flared, I guess is all I can say.
Yeah, they look a little bit like the sort of cuffed over boots that Captain America and many different characters have. Yeah. It's like, imagine that sort of cuff, but turned upside down.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of hard to describe for our listeners out there. But anyway, yes, Avengers number 52, the Grim Reaper. We see on the cover Jan and Hank and Clint all prone on the ground while the Black Panther, with a half uncovered face, is leaping towards us. Generally, everything doesn't look like it's sort of on the same plane. It kind of looks like everyone is floating around in limbo a little bit here. So yeah. While I like the art inside, the art here on the cover could be a little bit better.
Yeah.
And there are some places inside where it could be a little bit better, but then part of that is probably due to the fact that, well, we'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
And now, heed the exhortations of Stan Lee editor, Roy Thomas writer, and John Buscema artist, not to mention those of Vince Colletta inker and Sam Rosen letterer. And,
yes, a real tragedy to have Colletta once again inking Avengers here.
Yeah, and he unfortunately, he took the really incredibly forgettable issue to really sort of turn it up to not do much harm, and then does his harm here on this much less forgettable issue.
Yes, legendary issue, one might say. Issue where Black Panther joins the Avengers and Grim Reaper is introduced, and just generally, I think, a pretty great book, except for the Vince Colletta inking.
The Mighty Avengers, Death Calls for the Arch Heroes. So we begin with the Black Panther coming up to Avengers Mansion, coming in through the roof. I guess that Captain America gave him the information on how to come in through this particular secret way. But then as he's coming down, he ends up getting zapped and trapped. Then he ends up in the heart of Avengers Mansion and finds Hank and Clint and Jan seemingly all dead. He actually checks their pulse, and nothing's happening. Mm-hmm. He then turns around to find himself at Jasper Sitwell's gunpoint. So Jasper Sitwell somehow got news that they needed to come here and check out Avengers Mansion, finds the Avengers seemingly dead, and finds the Panther over them, and comes to the reasonable conclusion that this is some supervillain who has just killed them.
Yeah, it's really interesting to have a black person join your team for the first time, and the storyline involves him getting falsely accused of murdering them instantly. And, it's sort of, I guess they're trying to say something about racial injustice here. I'm not sure, but I think they're implying, to be black in America is to be constantly falsely accused of things. I don't know. Do you think that's intentional, or do you think that's just coincidence?
It might be intentional. I did find that it really jumped out at me that nobody seeing this with that implication that you're talking about, nobody seeing this in terms of the cops had any racial epithets, which I think in real life that probably would have happened. Yeah. Obviously that's not going to happen here in a comic book, but it just seemed like I'm not quite sure I buy all of this. Anyway, one way or the other, we have a little bit of a "they call me Mr. Tibbs" moment on page 6, panel 1, where the cop refers to him as Laughing Boy, and he says, "My given name, Inspector, is T'Challa, chief of all the Wakandas." And the guy responds, "Lead the way, T'Charlie." So, however, Black Panther does not then slap him. So,
yeah, and it's interesting that Black Panther never tries to invoke diplomatic immunity or anything that Dr. Doom would do in this situation. He lets himself be taken away. But then at one point he refers to himself as having resigned the kingship. So that's interesting. That's a huge development that happened off screen.
Yes. Well, he does at one point mention that, where is it here? He does mention something about being from Wakanda, and I think being the chief of the Wakandas. And they're like, well, we can't find that on a map. So
Yeah,
I think if you
good
tried
point.
to pull diplomatic immunity, this is a country that is completely unknown to the rest of the world.
Good point.
So we see that Black Widow shows back up just in time to see Clint being carted off on a stretcher, and she is distraught. We don't really see any more of her story in here at all. We just see that happened. News is spreading throughout the world that the Avengers are all dead. Captain America, Thor, and Tony Stark are all shocked to hear the news.
It's made the newspaper, which we always are trying to follow these things. Like, that this whole storyline seems to happen within a couple hours, but it's had time for Thor to read about it in the newspaper.
Yes. Well, I guess, back in the days when you had 2 or maybe even 3 editions of newspapers coming out in a day, that I guess would happen. I guess that was the whole point of doing that. So we then see the ranting and raving Grim Reaper, and we then get a flashback to like 30 minutes ago where Grim Reaper showed up at Avengers Mansion. He uses his scythe in every way except the way that a scythe would be used. He ends up zapping the Avengers and knocking them out. We then get a flashback within a flashback. And I do have to say that for all of the problems with the flashback timeline issues that we had in Submariner this month, John Buscema does a much better job with that here, in that at the beginning of the first flashback, we had that sort of cloud-like, bubbly kind of edge to the first panel leading into the flashback. And then on the way in, when we get the flashback inside the flashback, we have these different kind of jaggedy lines around those panels. And then we get the end of the first ones. It's almost sort of like parentheses and then square brackets, and then you come back out to the parentheses. But it does a good job. But what we learn is that the Grim Reaper is the brother of the late Wonder Man. Wonder Man is not yet revived, so he is at this point still dead. And Grim Reaper is here to exact his vengeance on the Avengers. Now, one thing that I find interesting is, there is a Wonder Man TV show that's coming up. Mm-hmm. And they have cast a black actor as Simon Williams. The thing that gets me about that is Grim Reaper, in a future storyline, I think one written by Steve Englehart, they make it very clear that he is a white supremacist. So now that they have this family being a black family, I guess they're not going to go for that particular storyline. But here it is, page 12, panel 3. The cop says, if he's really an African prince like he says, we can't book him. This would be a job for the UN. And the other guy says, sure, but we've just got to take his word on that. I can't find the Wakanda place on any map. So he actually did try to pull the diplomatic immunity thing to some extent.
Okay.
It didn't work. But then, so at that point, he just busts out and escapes from the cops, breaks back into Avengers Mansion, where he now finds the Grim Reaper there. They get into a big fight.
Oh, I guess we skipped over before the silliest thing about this issue. So they've got the Avengers sitting around, and then the Grim Reaper very clearly busts through a wall, Kool-Aid Man style, and completely destroys the wall. The whole place is filled with bricks and rubble and debris. And then he explains in his flashback that he broke in, burst through the wall, seemingly killed the Avengers with some sort of stasis ray that made them seem dead. Then he left and used his scythe to rebuild the wall as he left. And that, therefore, leaving behind the perfect sort of locked room mystery for when the Panther shows up, and seemingly only he could have killed the Avengers. Like, first of all, you've made it so clear in so many issues of the Avengers that anybody can just walk into Avengers Mansion, that there's so many ways you can just bluff your way into Avengers Mansion. You didn't have to actually show a big destroyed wall and a room filled with rubble and then explain that he somehow used his magic scythe to fix that wall. It's such a silly pattern.
Yes, I had, when I went back and reviewed things this morning before this, I had forgotten that particular detail. I missed it on the way through. Yes, apparently his scythe can basically undo anything it has done, automagically, as they say in certain things. Anyway, the Panther and the Grim Reaper fight for many pages. Eventually, the Panther is able to incapacitate the Reaper, but then he goes ahead and takes the scythe from the Reaper because apparently it can revive the Avengers, but time is running out. They will not be able to be revived any longer soon. So he breaks into the hospital because they've sent them to the hospital for some reason, even though they're dead.
Yes.
Right. They do actually point out that seems to be an odd thing to have happened. But so he breaks in and then uses the scythe to revive the Avengers. And at the end of things, the Black Panther does accept the invitation to become a new Avenger. Mm-hmm. Next-ish, perhaps the most totally unexpected foes of all, the extraordinary X-Men. So one thing I hadn't realized is in X-Men, they've said, oh, go find the Avengers. Maybe they can help us. I thought there might be a guest appearance of the Avengers in the X-Men, but I did not realize the X-Men were going to show up in the Avengers.
Yes.
They, don't always do that when there's a crossover. So anyway, that's an interesting thing to look forward to. And that is this issue. So yeah, it is a monumentous issue in that the Black Panther joins the Avengers. And yes, as you pointed out, Grim Reaper does go on to be a long-standing villain who eventually, figures after he sees Captain Ultra one day, figures, wow, okay, that's probably what I look like with all these colors. Captain Ultra, for anyone who doesn't know, is a Marvel super character who has every color basically in the rainbow on his uniform somewhere, and very similar to this.
Yes.
But so what do you think of this, Matt?
So, yeah, I'm just going through my notes. He takes the scythe off of, I guess, scythe. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Takes the scythe, I will say, off of Grim Reaper's arm. And I always assumed that Grim Reaper had a stump, was missing a hand, and that's why he had a scythe coming out of seemingly the stump on his hand. But no, it looks like he's got just a hand underneath there because he takes the scythe off and it looks like he had two hands underneath, or he had one hand underneath, I should say. It's funny, I don't think the Avengers ever find out the Grim Reaper's motivation because you've got the Grim Reaper just alone ranting to himself about like, oh, I'm Wonder Man's brother and that's why I'm doing this. And he says, I guess he's ranting this to the Avengers and he's telling them, if you could hear me, you would know that I'm Wonder Man's brother and why I'm doing this. But they can't. So they never even find out who he is or what he's doing. So yeah, so why do you think Black Panther's face is now showing? And do you think it's a good idea or not?
I mean, I'm guessing to show more clearly that he is a black man. Since they're no longer calling him the Black Panther.
Yeah, good point.
But part of it might be what you were saying earlier about black men being accused of crimes by the law. That, it's like, oh, well, they can see that he's black. But I don't know. I mean, we might be reading too much into that. It could just be that, John Buscema or Roy Thomas or somebody just was like, I don't like characters that have their faces entirely covered because it's hard to get across emotions or something like that. It could be just something simple like that and not any sort of agenda in it. Overall, I just don't like the look of it.
Yeah.
If we had first been introduced to the Black Panther looking this way, I might feel differently, but his iconic look is a full face mask, and I prefer his iconic look.
Well, certainly when Doctor Strange goes to a full face mask in the coming months, it's going to be very strange, and I'm never going to get used to it. I'm going to be like, you can't go from having no full face mask to having a full face mask. It's too disturbing. So
might one say that it is Doctor Strange?
Yeah. Oh, I said it was very strange. Okay. Yes, it is in fact Doctor Strange. Okay. So anyway, yes, but that is this issue. I think I say at the end of my notes, pretty good issue, would have been 10 times better with a better anchor and without repairing the wall. Adding a black character and having him falsely arrested for murder immediately is an interesting choice. So yes, just take out repairing the wall. That's better anchor, take out repairing the wall, much better issue. But other than that, this is a good issue of Avengers. I think we are really entering into, I would say that Avengers in the 50s, Avengers from the issues numbered in the 50s, is one of the all-time great Marvel runs. And we are just getting started on that. And it is going to be a great run of books. And I think adding the Black Panther is a great addition to the Marvel Universe. Now, it is sort of funny that they do not adequately explain in this issue why this king has run off to join the Avengers and what's happening to his kingdom while he's gone. And it's interesting, later when Jim Owsley is writing the Black Panther book, using his new name, Christopher Priest, I believe, he sort of feels obliged to way back, much, much later in the 90s, go back and explain, why did he join the Avengers? And he explains like, I didn't trust the Avengers, so I went to America to join the Avengers so I could go undercover in the organization and find out if they were a threat to Wakanda. So that's later the official canonical explanation for what's going on here, which is interesting. But certainly we don't get a sense of that here.
Yep. And so, looking forward in the next couple of months, we're going to still be doing 3 episodes for next month, if I'm not mistaken. And then the month after that, we're going to really have to think about how we're doing that, because the Spectacular Spider-Man magazine is going to be in there. And that is how many pages?
Yeah.
That's really long. So we're going to have to get creative here with how we do some of this stuff.
Yep.
All right. But that is a challenge for another day.
Yes.
And right now, I guess we just need to sign off. So thank you, everybody, for coming and listening. If you weren't listening, then we would just be talking into a microphone for no reason, and that would be just strange. So You give us a reason to have these conversations. It would really be great if any of you who have not yet reviewed or rated the show would give a review or a rating as your podcast platform allows, and that always makes our day. So if you want to make our day, sorry, that sounds threatening. If you want to put a spring in my step, you could go ahead and do that right now, and then I would be a happy man.
Yep, I agree. That'd be great. Or give money to our Patreon, even better. We'll happily take your money and then give you a free pass away from leaving a review if we just had some of your sweet, sweet cash instead.
Yeah, and now that we've got the RSS feed fixed, I might end up looking at putting at least a little bit of extra content up on there for folks, but we're not quite there yet. I've got some other things I'm dealing with right now, but that might happen. I will let you know if it does.
Great.
All right. So thank you very much, everybody. I guess we're just about done. So to say our goodbyes, as always, take care, and especially now more than ever, stay safe out there.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. All right. See you soon, everybody. Goodbye.
Take care. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, we now have a Patreon where you can show your appreciation. If you've got a few bucks, head over to patreon.marvelrereadclub.com to support us. Also, you can still rate and review us at your podcatcher of choice, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can find us online at marvelrereadclub.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. See you next time.